Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Dr. Bakari K. Lumumba of LumumbaSpeaks.com. Back with another great show where we're going to be honoring the Vodou Meeting at Bois Caïman. So once again, family, back once again in conjunction with, of course, the Bequaline Network, the Pan-African Social Media Extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. You're watching LumumbaSpeaks.com here on YouTube, and we're back with another show. Our groundbreaking series, Lessons from History, honoring the moral obligation to remember. Wars, uprising, revolts, and rebellions. This series, as you know, is dedicated to honoring the moral obligation to remember our ancestors who, in the intrepid contravention, of course, of the Ma'afa, displayed a consistent level of valor, faith, heroism, gallantry, spirit, and tenacity that was unseen throughout the known world. And so once again, family, we're here today to honor that on this day, on the night of August 14, 1791, of course, our brothers and sisters in what is now known as Haiti, the sovereign nation of Haiti, where we know Haiti has nominal sovereignty, gathered at Bois Caïman. And there was a ceremony presided over by Vodou Meeting, of course, Hungan, and of course, Cecil Fateman, who was a Mambo. These were, of course, male and female voodoo priest and priestess. And at that ceremony, this was, of course, a religious ritual and a strategic meeting. And the reason why we're doing this, family, is because when we study African resistance, not only during the Ma'afa, what we find is that oftentimes, we find this not only the continent, but even here in the Western world, African people would have social, political, religious meetings. So it wasn't just religious. There was also a political and revolutionary motive to the meetings that were taking place. And of course, this took place August 14th, 1791, in this area nearby, like near La Cap, what is now known as Cap Haitien, in Bois Caïman. So August 14th, 1791, we know a week later, 8 days later, August 22nd, 1791, the Haitian Revolution actually began. And so we want to give thanks to our ancestors, particularly Vodou Meeting, Cecil Fateman, for leading that meeting, right? Having the temerity, right? The gall, the audacity to say that our lives are not meant for enslavement, and we are going to, of course, we are going to fight back. We will not acquiesce. We will fight to the death. And so, family, we want to make sure that we take time to honor, once again, the moral obligation to remember. As you know, we have a groundbreaking series here at Lumumba 6, the Pan-African Leadership Series, where we chronicle, the life, legacy, and of course, the work of great Pan-Africans of the past in order to learn how to make a better world for African people in the future. But in this series, we honor the moral obligation to remember. And so today, we're honoring that voodoo ceremony, that voodoo meeting that took place at Bois Caïman. So once again, family, if you're watching, you can tap in. I'm going to put the link in the description momentarily. The link is in the description. I will put the link in the chat momentarily. Let's have a conversation about honoring, of course, the Vodou Meeting at Bois Caïman. So the link is now in the chat, family, so you can tap in, be part of the conversation. Once again, you do not have to cam up to be part of the convo. And as you know, you can use a pseudonym. I also want to give a shout out to Mr. K. He's been corresponding with me via email, and we're going to do a reaction video to a video that he sent me regarding, of course, the history of Islam in Africa. And so, of course, that'll be very interesting. So we definitely want to give a shout out to Mr. K for continuing to correspond with me via email, but also recommending literature for me to read as well. As we know, we always want to learn and grow and develop and expand our knowledge of who we are in our history. So definitely appreciative to Mr. K. But once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, family. Let's have a conversation about honoring the moral obligation to remember. Of course, this is Lessons from History, honoring the Vodou Meeting at Bois Caïman. If you do not know, of course, on this day, August 14th, 1791, led by Vodou Meeting, of course, and Cecil Fateman, there was a Vodou Meeting. There was also a revolutionary planning, a strategic meeting where they made a pact to, of course, start the revolution that, of course, led to the sovereign nation of Haiti and the establishment of the first Black Republic in the Western Hemisphere. We also know that the success of the Haitian Revolution showed to African people enslaved throughout the Western world that through armed resistance, they too could be free and, of course, restore their nationhood. So once again, family, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in and be part of the conversation. You do not have to come up to be part of the convo, and you can, of course, use a pseudonym. Mr. Sandman, you say it was more of a war cry. What do you mean by that? So hopefully you could tap in. What do you mean by it was more of a war cry rather than a strategic planning meeting? I hope to hear from you there. Mr. Sandman, as you know, college football is around the corner. Your team, Penn State, has been ranked number 2 in the Associated Press poll. But we know that when come November 1st, you're still going to, get ran through by the Ohio State University. So, but once again, tap in if you can. The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Make sure you're a blessing to the show. Venmo at Bakari Lumumba. Of course, PayPal. Well, not PayPal. I'm sorry, family. Cash App at Lumumba Speaks. And then, of course, you can always hit the super chat whenever you're so inclined to do so. But I was even sharing with one of my colleagues that the significance of the Haitian Revolution is that the Haitian Revolution is what really brought about this concept of Pan-Africanism, right? Many argue, particularly, I think William Jeremiah Moses talks about this concept of proto-Pan-Africanism, of individuals engaging in Pan-Africanist actions, ideas, and thought, irrespective before the term was actually coined. We know the term was coined by Henry Sylvester Williams at the turn of the 20th century, along with Sister Kenlock. Definitely want to make sure we mention her. I always have to mention Sisters in the Struggle. But what we found with the Haitian Revolution was that after the success of the Haitian Revolution, of course, then Emperor Jean-Jacques Dessalines declared Haiti's independence on 1 January 1804. We found that, right, they didn't rest on their laurels. They were, of course, committed to eradicating the enslavement of African peoples throughout the Western Hemisphere. And then more importantly, even for African Americans such as myself, that they actually provided capital for not only the relocation, but also housing of African Americans leaving the United States and coming to Haiti, providing a reprieve, of course, from the vicissitudes and dehumanizing practice of chattel enslavement, and anti-Blackness. So, this is, I think, we always have to honor Haiti. I've always stated, and I shared this with Brother Bequan before, offline and maybe even online. If you go back in our Rolodex of videos, that I believe Haitian people are the greatest African people to walk the earth, right? I'm not aware of any group of African people who were able to defeat three powers, the different powers in succession, right? We're talking about the British, we're talking about the French, starting with the French, then of course the British, the Spanish, and then the British again, and the French again, and being able to defeat them. And then we also know that when we look at the valor and the tenacity and the commitment that, of course, our brothers and sisters in Haiti had and still have, I would argue, that terrorized, that literally put shock and fear throughout the slaveocracy of the Western world. And of course, we find that's, many argue, that plays a role in the discriminatory practices regarding immigration, the immigration practices against Haitian people to this day. And there was a belief that if Haitians come to America, they're going to embolden, of course, African Americans to fight. And as well they should. But we know we were already fighting as well. So tap in, family. Once again, the link is in the description. The link is in the chat. This is, once again, part of our groundbreaking series, Lessons from History, honoring the moral obligation to remember wars, uprisings, revolts, and rebellions. As you know, this series is dedicated to honoring our ancestors who, in the intrepid contravention of the Ma'afa, displayed a consistent level of valor, faith, heroism, gallantry, spirit, and tenacity that was unseen throughout the world. And of course, and even pushed back, of course, when we talk about the success of the Haitian Revolution, and pushed back against the prevaricating beliefs that African people could not free themselves and could not maintain their freedom, right? We know that the concept of Black people being unable to govern themselves is a misnomer, because we were governing ourselves just fine prior to, of course, the Ma'afa. So something to consider there, that once again, there was this ideological role that, of course, the Haitian Revolution played. There was even an epistemological role that the Haitian Revolution created in terms of the creating knowledge of history, right, about African people. And so once again, family, if you're watching, this is LumumbaSpeaks.com in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire and the home of African-centered news and information. I know we oftentimes have brothers and sisters from the continent, even the UK, who are watching. Tap in, be part of the convo, and we're going to be discussing, of course, the legendary, right, infamous voodoo ceremony and meeting at Bois Caïman that, of course, led to the subsequent start of the Haitian Revolution. We're talking August 14th, family, August 14th, 1791. Happy Pan-African Thursday, and most importantly, happy Black August, right? I would be remiss in my duty if I don't mention happy Black August. So definitely want to make sure that we honor that. But when we talk about Bois Caïman, right? Bois Caïman was the site of the first major meeting of enslaved Blacks, during which the first major slave insurrection of the Haitian Revolution was planned, right? Before the Bois Caïman ceremony, voodoo rituals were seen as an event, social gathering where enslaved Africans had the ability to organize. These meetings and opportunities to organize were considered harmless by white slave owners. Therefore, they were permitted. It is also argued that voodoo created a more homogeneous Black culture in Haiti. On the night of August 14, 1791, representative slaves from nearby plantations gathered to participate in a secret ceremony conducted in the woods near Le Cap in the French colony of Santo Domingo. The ceremony was presided over by Vodou Meeting, a prominent enslaved African leader, Hungan, and Cecil Fateman, a Mambo. A witness described the presence of 200 enslaved Africans at the event. The ceremony served as both a religious ritual and a strategic meeting, as enslaved Africans met and planned a revolt against the ruling white enslavers of the colony's wealthy northern plain. The ceremony is considered the official beginning of the Haitian Revolution. So once again, family, tap in, be part of the conversation as we honor the moral obligation to remember. And this is of extreme importance, right? We talk about oftentimes our young people, who many have started school on today or early in the week, discuss the issue that we tend to find they only learn what surface level history. We talk about that master narrative, right? Misinterpreting, of course, Black resistance to, of course, foreign domination and white hegemony. Well, this is an example of us being able to push back against those misnomers, right? I can recall many years ago when I was still an undergraduate, I had went to a elementary school, actually accompanied a friend of mine who was going to be speaking to some students at a Cincinnati elementary school. And at the elementary school, young man said, "Why didn't we fight back during slavery?" And I said, "Well, excuse me, we did. Why would you make that claim?" And he says, "Well, why is it that we've never learned about that?" Right. And so oftentimes, the presumption is, well, we didn't do something because it isn't being taught. And of course, this goes back to, of course, the work of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who many years ago in 1933 wrote his book, Miseducation of the Negro, right? And he argues, I believe on page 150, that one of the issues of miseducation is we're taught about all the contributions and history of other people, but not our own, right? And so we want to make sure that we're not, of course, promoting, right, that misnomer, that miseducation, right, doing that type of psychological harm to African children, irrespective where they're born and raised and reared. And so we want to make sure that we push back against that. And one of the ways we do that, of course, is here at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and Bequaline Network, where we collaborated and thought of course, creating a video series titled Lessons from History, Honoring the Moral Obligation to Remember, that gives us an opportunity to hone in on particular events in African history, particularly African people's heroic and resistance against, of course, foreign domination during the, of course, Mahafa. So definitely, family, if you're interested, you can tap in, be part of the conversation. You're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com, Black Empowerment Initiative, where we believe you can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction with Bequaline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire, and the home of African-centered news and information. Once again, family, The link is in the description. The link is in the chat. Tap in, be part of the convo. If not, we're going to end up closing out. But I definitely would love to hear from you all in terms of what are your thoughts, particularly on the practice that we find of African people of there being a religious and political aspect to these type of religious meetings, right? What we tend to find, and I'm going to bring you in a moment, Mr. Sandman, is irrespective if you're in the Caribbean, or what's known as the West Indies, if you're on the continent, or even here in the Def Decans and Dysphoria, the great good old US of A, we find there being a political aspect to, of course, these religious meetings, but they weren't strictly religious. I think this is an aspect of our culture rather than what many people will argue the role of the religion. Hey, man, what's your role? 215.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I hear you just fine.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. I was reading up on that a little bit prior to calling in, and yeah, one of the things about that issue that struck me kind of interesting, and I thought was kind of a odd conundrum that we're in, or as African Americans, is in traditional voodoo ceremonies. It was common for our ancestors in West Africa to sacrifice an animal, a part of the ritual.
Yes.
Normally, that would be like a chicken or a goat or something like that. We would
Yes.
sacrifice it to the gods or whatever. But it looks like in that particular ritual, we were forced to sacrifice a pig.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and we all know that a pig, I mean, it carries a lot of diseases and bacteria. It's interesting that we got boxed into that dichotomy, whereas though we were forced to consume foul animals and sacrifice a foul animal to the gods, because I don't believe the pig itself is indigenous to the Americas, and even the domesticated pig wasn't indigenous to Africa, to West Africa either. But we did have like warthogs, but we didn't consume warthogs either in West Africa. So I don't know. Maybe that sounds a little petty, but it just seems like an interesting dichotomy, particularly since our the roots of our culture prior to us being brought over the transatlantic slave trade, where we didn't consume those particular animals. How we were forced to sacrifice those particular animals to our gods, so we had to adjust, to that particular form of rituals.
Right. And this is what's known as synchronism. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah, but there is of course, mixture of traditional African religious beliefs with, of course, Western culture, or Western cultural norms, or Western religious beliefs, what's known as synchronism. Absolutely.
yes, yeah. So yeah, that was just an interesting concept. Also, it was also important for us to have to. What was I going to say? Oh, I'm sorry. I almost forgot. Almost forgot a second. Yeah, it was also important for us to have to. Um, uh, 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 Darn, what is it that I had read? Oh yeah. A lot of our ancestors in West Africa were of Islamic faith as well. I mean, due to a lot of the Arabic crusades that happened in West Africa too. So I believe the kingdom of Mansa Musa, they were more Islamic faith, and they didn't consume a pig as well. So it kind of went against some of our more recent traditions as well, not to consume the pig as well. And
Well, what we find you're talking about the Mali Empire, is that in that society, the elites, of course, were Islamic, but we do know that the constitution of the Mali Empire was secular.
okay, right, yeah, because Mansa Musa did do a pilgrimage to Egypt, and at the time, Egypt
Well,
was
to Mecca.
already
to Mecca.
or to Mecca, but he didn't stop in Egypt.
I mean, it was on the way, yeah, but the
Yeah,
pilgrimage was to Mecca.
yeah, and at the time Mecca was Mecca is Islamic place, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
well,
the
Mecca is
yeah.
where you have to go to do the Hajj.
Yeah. I was thinking about Israel. My bad. Yeah, I know they're in the same area, but I was thinking about where Jesus was, as opposed to where Muhammad was. Okay, yeah. So that was interesting, and yeah, it's interesting that we were forced to have to utilize that as a war cry to help sacrifice those animals to our ancestors.
So
So
when you say war cry, what do you mean by that?
mm, when I say war cry, I mean that they probably thought that it was some type of supernatural um, um, abilities that were getting given to them through the ancestors that allowed them to fight that war. But of course, why would our ancestors, if it is something supernatural from from in the afterlife, come to help us if we're sacrificing a foul animal like a pig?
Well,
Or
I would say this. I think you're speculating, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've read up on this, and I'm gonna try to pull up the PDF of Cyril James's text, right, where they discuss this very issue. So give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find this. All right. Yes. So no, that was not the case. They were not. There was not a belief that there would be a supernatural abilities given to them to defeat the enslavers. And I'm trying to see if I can find this particular text. No, this is not it. No, that's not the case. Lord have mercy. Because I actually have the actual print book at home. So I'm trying to see, if I can pull this up here. Yeah, I just found it. Give me 1 second. I can even share my screen. But no, that was not the case. Where I think one of the things this shows is the adaptive vitality of African people, right? When we talk about their ability to adapt. Okay, here we go. So I have it here. I'm going to share my screen because I even share this with my students when we cover this in my African American history class about the significance of the Haitian Revolution. So here, as you can see here,
yeah, I'm here.
okay. Wow, okay, there we go. So this is on page 87 of C.L.R. James's text, Black Jacobins, Toussaint Louverture and the Santo Domingo Revolution. So on the night of the 22nd, a tropical storm raged with lightning and gusts of wind and heavy showers of rain. Let me see if I can increase this so you all can see. I don't think I can. Heavy showers of rain. Carrying torches to light their way, the leaders of the revolt met in an open space in the thick forest of the Moraine Rouge, a mountain overlooking Le Cap. There, Bookmine gave the last instructions, and after voodoo incantations and the sucking of the blood of a stuck pig, he stimulated his followers by a prayer spoken in Creole. Which, like so much spoken on such occasions, has remained. The God who created the sun, which gives us light, who rouses the waves and rules the storm. Though hidden in the clouds, he watches us. He sees all that the white man does. The God of the white man inspires him with crime, but our God calls upon us to do good works. Our God, who is good to us, orders us to avenge our wrongs. He would direct our arms and aid us. Throw away the symbol of the God of the whites, who has so often caused us to weep, and listen to the voice of liberty, which speaks in the hearts of us all. The symbol of the God of the whites was the cross, which as Catholics they wore around their necks. That very night they began. The slaves on the Galifet plantation were so well treated that happy as the Negroes of Galifet was a slave proverb, yet a phenomenon known as an auto revolution, it was they who led the way. Right. So as we see, they made a prayer, but there was not. Yes. but there was not this was not a situation in which they were looking to receive any type of revolutionary powers. This is also not a situation in which, and from my understanding, that they viewed the pig as a unclean animal due to an Islamic influence. Right? We do know that there were some of our ancestors who, unfortunately, were suffered the indignity of the Middle Passage, but that was not but I would argue that number was less than 10% who were actually practitioners of the Islamic faith.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's just me knowing black people in general, how they have a tendency. Maybe I'm speculating again, but how black people in general have a tendency to believe that there's going to be some type of divine intervention through prayer, and it just seems like a ritual like a voodoo is where they're just trying to have some sort of divine intervention, not necessarily some type of superhero powers like a
Yeah, but
like
I
a
would argue that the practice of or the belief in divine intervention is what we find as a result, as an adverse result of our what enslavement and Christian indoctrination. But here we find that they simply were praying to their God to inspire and empower them to fight. But they weren't seeking divine intervention in any way, shape, or form.
yeah, it's hard to substantiate that to 100%, being that we weren't there with them to really
Well, well,
feel the vibe.
I would say I could confidently make that claim because I've reviewed the history. I've actually read the literature from numerous frames of reference, numerous perspectives regarding the Haitian Revolution, and what we found was that if they had believed in divine intervention, they wouldn't have took up arms themselves.
Well, that particular ritual in and of itself, there isn't any documented history of it. I believe it was more um, through spoken history.
Well, yeah, well, actually, there were some individuals, non-black individuals, that witnessed the actual meeting, and that's why how we know what happened and what was said.
Oh, okay, so it was documented.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
Who was the people that documented it?
There were non-French whites who saw what took place and documented the meeting and what was said.
Okay, I'll have to research those guys.
Yeah, because during the revolution, there were, of course, free people of color, mixed race. You had Polish whites, right, who were in France. In fact, when Jean-Jacques Dessalines led his what many people call massacre, they spared the Polish people there because they were allies.
Mm. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Also, about one of your students who proclaimed that us as Africans, or even African Americans who were in bondage and enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade, that we didn't fight back. I did a little bit of research on the history of my family, and come to find out, one of the plantations that my family come from in South Africa was in the Civil War, and it's that plantation is like a monument even till today. So apparently the British had attacked our plantation and forced us to fight. Believe this or not, they forced us to fight the United States, or not. We were wasn't the United States at the time. They forced us to fight against the colonial rebels
Right.
during
Yes,
the
I'm familiar with that.
during the Revolutionary War. Yeah. So I believe my family, if you've been here a long time, and that's an interesting concept, being that there's a lot of talk about so-called settlers or African Americans who live in the United States, but aren't of the lineage of the African Americans who were brought over here in chattel slavery. How their ancestors didn't have to, build the country up from scratch, through fighting and through fighting for their own liberty.
Right.
But with us being our own uh, ethnic group, at what point, after so many hundreds of years of living on the United States, does this become a part of our heritage more
Well,
so than even Africa?
well, I
Do you
would
believe?
respectfully, but Mr. Sandman, that is immaterial to the conversation. Said we're focusing on honoring the Voodoo meeting that Bois Caïman today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's something we would have to table to for another time. Today. We're here to focus on, of course, honoring lessons from history, honoring the moral obligation to remember, and of course, honoring the Voodoo meeting at the Bois Caïman that led to, of course, the Haitian Revolution. So, quick question from I see Kevin, aka Mr. K. Let's see if I could get to this here. Give me 1 second. Okay, quick question. Would you say the spirituality influence on the Haitians to uprise against the French is very similar to the spirituality on the Kenyans to uprise against the British? Well, I would say yes. And I'm making the presumption that you're referring to the Mau Mau, right, in Kenya. What we find throughout, of course, the African world, and by the African world, I mean anywhere the African people find themselves, is one of the preeminent harbingers of African or Black resistance, whatever term you want to use, to foreign domination, was this concept of being rooted in one's own culture and religious spirituality, right? We find, matter of fact, I can recall Brother Dwayne Omawale, who's a resident historian here at, of course, Lumumba Speaks and Beeline Network, talked about how oftentimes there was a schism, right, between the Black Panther Party and cultural nationalists, such as the US organization. And what many people misunderstood was that when we looked at revolutionary movements on the continent and even throughout the Western world, in the Americas, was that the revolutionary movement was always fueled by what? Adherence to and embracing one's own culture, right? So we find that throughout, of course, the African world. And so I would say yes to that question, Mr. K. Absolutely. Great question, by the way.
And I will also add, I would like to add, if I could, if you don't mind, that I believe there is something to those voodoo rituals. And the reason why I say that is because, some years back when I was deployed to the Middle East, during the deployment, I was stationed with these with these Puerto Rican unit, the unit from Puerto Rico, because they actually have army forces in Puerto Rico, like what you call them? They call them not civil service, but army reserves in Puerto Rico,
Mhm.
and they actually got deployed to the Middle East with us. And I recall being that they were deployed to the Middle East. They used to do this thing with their drums. It was some type of Santeria type ritual. And whenever they did their rituals, whenever they were they leaving, or coming back on base, I recall that it gave me that this energy. I can almost feel it, like this energy that comes from them banging on the drums and the chants they were making. But other people, they would get frightened from the chants. I don't know why, but it just seemed like, there is some type of spiritual incantations involved in it. I think you just have to be inside of one of those rituals to understand what they're feeling.
Okay. Very good.
Have you ever been in a voodoo ritual?
I have not. I have not. Unfortunately, no, I have not. How about you, Mr. K? Matter of fact, Mr. K, how about you tap in and be part of the conversation? We'd love for you to come join us. I'm quite sure you have a bevy of knowledge regarding, of course, the Haitian Revolution and, of course, the meeting at, of course, Bois Caïman. So once again, family, if you're watching, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Of course, the link is in the description. And, of course, make sure you hit the notification bell, like, subscribe, and share. You're watching, of course, LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black, in conjunction with, of course, Beeline Network, the Pan-African social media extraordinaire. And we're here today with another groundbreaking video in our revolutionary series, Lessons from History, honoring the moral obligation to remember. And today we're honoring, of course, the Vodou Meeting at Bois Caïman that led to the subsequent Haitian Revolution and the creation of the first Black Republic in the Western Hemisphere. As many people argue, they call, of course, the brothers and sisters in Haiti during the 19th century the Avengers of the New World, and we want to make sure that we avenge the reputation of our brothers and sisters from Haiti, who we know, irrespective of where they go, they're spoken of in a negative light because of what they were able to accomplish. As I stated, and I stated this when I was defending my dissertation, when I began my dissertation defense. And if you think this is cap, of course, my dissertation defense was streamed live on our channel, on the platform, so you could go back and watch it in September of 2024. But when I began my dissertation defense, I stated that before I began, I have to say with all the courage that my soul can muster, that the animus, of course, against Haitian people is not based on what they allegedly eat, but who they beat 220 plus years ago. And so I always will have a tremendous respect for our Haitian brothers and sisters, and I always look to repay and reciprocate the benignity that they provided for us. Many people are unaware that after, of course, Haiti was able to declare their independence and become we're now known called, but at least at one point, a sovereign nation, that numerous presidential administrations provided funding for the relocation and housing of African Americans in Haiti and Port-au-Prince. To be in particular, Bishop James C. Holly, for example, sent along with a contingent of thousands of African Americans resettled in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. So we definitely want to make sure that we're giving honor, respect, and appreciation to our brothers and sisters in Haiti.
Well, the thing is, when you believe that a group of people aren't humans, and if a non-human takes a human's life, then what do? You exterminate that animal. Same thing you would do with like a wild dog. You would euthanize it. So that's the issue. Is like the Africans in Haiti that fought for their rights, they weren't considered human, so they felt the right to exterminate them, so to speak, kind of like a wild animal, because they killed white people.
Right.
I had to head back into the gig, but it was great talking to you, Doctor.
No problem. Absolutely. Appreciate you, brother. Well, family, and I'm going to check out those books by Dr. Plummer on Haiti as well. Definitely appreciate everyone's happening and be part of the conversation. Once again, this was just another video in our groundbreaking series, Lessons from History, honoring the moral obligation to remember. Of course, and today we're honoring, of course, the Vodou Meeting, the revolutionary, historic Vodou Meeting at Bois Caïman. I wish I learned about these type of things when I was in school, right? But this is why we're here, so that we can push back against that, of course, the miseducation of African people, but also Black erasure, right? We know what Black erasure is. Black erasure are practices that are formal and informal that lead to the, of course, invisibility of Black people's contributions to history, humanity, and human civilization. And so we definitely want to make sure that we do not render our history invisible. And of course, we always want to make sure that we're honoring our brothers from Haiti. So ça passe, right? And if there was a response, it would be Nabule, right? And so at this point, definitely give thanks to our brothers and sisters from Haiti. But until next time, family, y'all know what to do. Always, always, always bet on Black. Peace. Until next time, family, y'all know what to do. Before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you for supporting the channel. And remember, here at Lumumba Speaks, we always bet on Black. Peace.